So we've all seen AI companies jump in bed with the US government, this US government speed running itself into a fascist state. But also what you've seen throughout your social media feeds is AI slop, and some saying it's AI art. But also what you often find is the people sharing this stuff or creating this stuff, I guess generating this stuff, is usually conservatives and far right governments. And lots of people have been saying that AI art is basically synonymous with fascism and it's the aesthetic of fascism. And I wanted to talk about this today. This could be obviously like the longest video ever, but I don't think I'm the person to make the most detailed video on this because I'm not someone who actually makes art in terms of draws things or paints things. I'm not that type of artist. There is a book I'm writing, and I might talk about that a little bit in terms of the human desire to create and why you do that and what you want to even achieve by that. But today I just want to talk about Hell World, and I want to kind of link it back to how a lot of fascists these days like don't really believe in anything. And I know that sounds really wild to say that like fascists don't believe in anything, but we're entering like a new age of fascism where it's kind of not even about like changing the world. And a lot of fascists back in the day, they did have some version of the world they wanted to create with their fascist policies, and they got people to buy into that. But when we have like such a husk of ideology that is Donald Trump. But I think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump not really resembling much personally. Like, he isn't someone who has an ideology that he wants to change America into something or take it back to something. Like, he says he does, obviously, make America great again. But Donald Trump is just bought and paid for by the highest bidder. All he gives a shit about is money. The US spin on fascism is most of the people leading the movement just want to extract as much wealth as possible while actually collapsing the state in on itself. Like, they're deregulating the hell out of it to make themselves money. They don't actually give a shit about this. There isn't really like a vision for the future because these people don't really care about the future. They care about individual wealth and making themselves rich. There's a more dangerous element in US politics who aren't elected. That's the Silicon Valley tech bros who actually do have an ideology. But if we're talking about the mainstream conservative movement, I actually don't think there is much of an ideology there. I'll explore that a bit further in the video. But what it does is make AI slop so compatible with their politics, which is completely reactionary, and it seems to be more than ever based in trolling. Like, you see how JD Vance replies to people. That's the vice president, and he's like acting like a 4chan troll on Twitter, and that is just what the Republican Party is these days. And they've fully embraced this AI slop as their propaganda, whether that's Studio Ghibli, knockoffs that OpenAI made available to everyone, whether that is just like really bizarre AI videos about Trump owning Gaza and shit like this. I want to explore all of this today and obviously explore the economic side of it as well, which because these right wingers and fascists using this stuff, they don't care about the environmental implications. They don't care about like ripping off left wing artists' work. Of course, they probably see that as a benefit to this. They have absolutely no moral objections to using AI. And that's why fundamentally they absolutely love this shit. While lots of left wing people, of course, hate AI, they hate what it represents, they hate who is making all the money off it, and they hate what it represents for humanity generally. So you're not going to find as many leftists embracing this, especially when it comes to stuff that leftists often want to do for fun, which is artistic endeavors. All of that coming up for you today. If you want to follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Blue Sky, but also on Instagram. If you want to support my work going forward, check me out on YouTube memberships and also check out my Patreon page. And if you want to, after you watch the video, maybe leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. A lot of people have been sharing this article by Gareth Watkins from The New Socialist, and it's called AI, the New Aesthetics of Fascism. I want to read a little part of this article, mainly about the economics, but I'd recommend people go read this because if you want to delve into the cultural thing a bit more, it's very good for that. But I want to start by talking about like the actual financial aspects of fascism and AI, because I already said OpenAI is deeply embedded with the fascist US government, and Elon Musk, of course, was and probably still will be in some capacity in bed with the US government. and it is firmly an industry that, at least in the Western sense, is loving the fascist rise. But Gareth Watkins writes here, capitalist class as a whole has made a massive bet on AI, $1 trillion according to Goldman Sachs, a figure calculated before the Trump administration pledged a further $500 billion for its Project Stargate. While previous bets on the metaverse and NFTs didn't pay off, their bet on cryptocurrency has paid off spectacularly. $3.44 trillion at the time of writing have been created effectively out of thin air. All of the above technologies have heavy buy-in from the political right. Donald Trump co-signed an NFT project and a meme coin. The far right, shut out of conventional banking, uses cryptocurrency almost exclusively. This isn't just about utility, it's about aligning themselves with the tech industry. The same is true of AI. OpenAI is unable to make any money on $200 subscriptions to ChatGPT. Goldman Sachs cannot see any justification for its level of investment. So the AI industry now finds that it needs all the allies it can get, and it can't afford to be picky. If the only places people are seeing it is on like Twitter from fascist accounts, well, at least it's being used at all. The thinking seems to be that if it can hang on long enough in the public consciousness, like cryptocurrency, AI will become too big to fail. Political actors like Tommy Robinson won't be the ones to make that call, but they can normalize its use. Just as we might donate to a GoFundMe, the capitalist class will provide mutual aid in the form of billions in investment, adding AI to their products and attempting to normalize AI by using it. This process of normalization has led the current Labour government to even pledge vast sums to AI infrastructure. So why I lead with like the economic side of AI is the Sam Altman thing and OpenAI is correct. Like its valuation is absolutely like insane. And some of the deals being thrown around AI, the valuation to me is just like nuts. But that's why they need this normalization from people like Donald Trump. And that's why for Sam Altman, making this like Studio Ghibli filter was great because everyone started using it. Everyone started using it and it becomes normal. And the masses were consuming this without really thinking about it. And if you were like on the left calling people out, they think you're a killjoy trying to ruin people's fun. But it's all about the normalization of this soulless art, stealing someone else's aesthetic. And people like Sam Altman have bent the knee to Trump because they need someone to normalize this, and fascists love this shit. So I just want to show people that a lot of this is financial, and participating in AI normalization is helping global fascism in an economic and political way. Now, if we're talking about like fascists and art, a lot of people are obviously going to bring up futurism in regards to Mussolini's Italy. As much as I love history, I'm not an art historian, but a video on futurism could be interesting because when I was reading about this week, I was just thinking about like the tech bros so much. So basically, futurism, you can probably guess by its name, was a political movement which just had this obsession with modernity and just, I guess, industrial development and the future. And the past shouldn't be revered, it should be completely left behind. And this was a movement that was across various different European countries. And although futurism obviously is a political type of ideology, futurists in Russia like supported the Bolsheviks, and some futurists in Italy supported Mussolini and did fascist propaganda for Mussolini because to them Mussolini was a vehicle for their futurist ideology. Now you have other fascists like Julius Evola who hated modernity, he hated industrialization, and he wanted to go back to like rural communities and stuff. So you even had that split with Italian fascists with what they wanted. And Evola didn't like Mussolini because he wasn't a traditionalist and he was someone who did want to like modernize Italy and industrialize it. But these fascists saw Mussolini as a vehicle for their political ideology. And you can see, I'll show you some of the art here about Mussolini. It's a very like distinctive style. What I'm using this example for to start with the art stuff is these futurists had a political ideology and they linked themselves to Mussolini because of that political ideology. And with their art, they were trying to convey something. Now, of course, it's something stupid, something I don't agree with, and something that obviously led to absolutely terrible things across Europe. I'm making the comparison because I'm comparing these futurist artists latching themselves onto the fascist movement and doing propaganda to what we're seeing today in America in particular with this AI propaganda. And that's what I'm trying to say. The point is, a lot of these fascists don't actually value anything and they don't believe anything. And you could maybe compare them to futurists, But futurists believed in something. They had a vision for the future they wanted. These current fascists who use AI, they're like futurists in that they have no moral qualms about using AI and using the technology of the future. But at the same time, there is no overall goal apart from enriching the individual in their mind. So let's go to the Trump administration. So you probably saw this going around recently. I wouldn't even classify this as art. I guess some people would. It's about that alligator Alcatraz being built, and they have crocodiles in ice hats. And again, this is Homeland Security, which is a fascist organization set up after 9/11. And just for everyone to remember, no one took it down, including Biden and Obama. ICE was only invented in the 21st century. But that's what I mean. Like, what do these people believe, and what is this art trying to represent? Crocodiles wearing ice hats near a prison. The only thing they're trying to do here is be funny and be a meme and troll. They're trying to put themselves into the culture and normalize this thing even more and make a whole joke out of actual terrible fascism. And if you've seen the pictures of the camps, like that they're setting up, it's just barbaric. But again, they're trying to sanitize it. And that's what this AI slop has been doing for all these groups. They're sanitizing it and trying to make it funny. So here's another example, right? White House posts, Virginia Basoro Gonzalez, a deported alien felon convicted of fentanyl trafficking, was arrested by ICE in Philadelphia after entering the US. She wept as she was taken into custody. And then they post here in response, her being arrested as Studio Ghibli art. Again, what is this politics? Sanitization, trolling, memeing. It's just the filter to be like, look, we are doing this trend too to help normalize AI slop. You see Charlie Kirk posting himself with JD Vance. You have the White House again having JD Vance. Sanitization. You have more dystopian shit like this. Lo-fi MAGA video to relax and study to. More cartoons about someone being deported by ICE. So you get the picture. All those AI slop posts, AI art, it's designed just to sanitize them, troll leftists, troll liberals, make themselves look cool, and also really just help center what they're doing in, I wouldn't call it a positive light, but they're going with humor because they know what they're doing is absolutely terrible. But the whole thing around this Alcatraz stuff is so bizarre. But to me, it does show there is no real coherent ideology behind the Trump administration. And you can say, well, he's doing fascism. While I would argue there are certainly people in the US government who do have concrete fascist ideology and a world they actually want, Donald Trump and the sycophants around him only care about enriching themselves and these media stunts and keeping a hold of their power. So he campaigns on deporting loads of people. He has to have these big projects where he shows himself treating immigrants like crap. But there's just no ideology to back up anything he's really doing. Like, what does Donald Trump want America to be in 4 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? Has he ever expressed what he wants it to look like? Has anyone in the Trump regime expressed what they want it to look like? No. So when you're not even expressing any ideals, how could you even make anything original and artistic about this? There's nothing underlying it. It's completely empty and hollow. So you just have to fill it with memes and slop to get people on board. Like, people do like Trump just because he memes and trolls. That's not even a joke. That's why, like, 21st century fascism just feels like increasingly stupid. Why people even fall for this stuff. They fall for it because of the cultural shit and all the memes, and that's pretty much all that they have going for it. But it works because of the constant overwhelming misinformation, constant bombardment of all this fucking slop, and this AI propaganda is just infesting everything. And this trolling mentality that they all seem to have now is how they are doing their propaganda, because they actually do not believe in anything. Now let's talk about this a bit more. So obviously people saw the Trump Gaza thing. That was absolutely like sickening. It was basically if Gaza was run by the United States and all worshipped Donald Trump. It was a really bizarre AI video he posted. And what AI does is the sanitization of horrific shit, right? What is Donald Trump actually trying to say with that post? Yeah, the US should colonize Gaza and make it essentially like a colony for Trump and continue to act as though the people there, like, don't exist, have no desires, have no autonomy. But it gets actually worse. I saw this AfD, the German Nazi party, their propaganda using AI slop. And this is as close as you're going to get, apart from like IDF slop and IDF TikTok, of actually watching what it would be like if the Nazis have access to AI. I'm not even joking. In the AI slop video, they show like a German couple seemingly in like the 1930s and 40s.
Deine Vorfahren haben Brandenburg aufgebaut. Jede Straße, jede Schule, jedes Haus. Deine Vorfahren hatten in Brandenburg Hier hat dein Opa deine Oma zum Tanzen ausgeführt. Hier ging deine Mutter in den Kindergarten. Hier hat dein Opa sein Haus gebaut. Hier haben dich deine Eltern zur Welt gebracht und zu dem gemacht, der du heute bist. Brandenburg war und ist ihre Heimat. Deine Heimat soll es aber nicht mehr sein. Wenn es nach den Altparteien geht, ist Brandenburg ein internationales Siedlungsgebiet. Eine Steuereintreibung für deine Großeltern mag die Rente noch knapp reichen. Du wirst vielleicht nie einen Cent sehen. Dein Opa musste sich nicht mit Talahons rumärgern. Dein Großvater konnte in sein Haus investieren. Deine Steuern bezahlen Radwege in Peru. Dieser Wahnsinn muss endlich gestoppt werden. Bewahre das Erbe deiner Eltern und Großeltern. Schütze deine Heimat. Du verdienst eine Zukunft, wie deine Vorfahren sie hatten. Deshalb sprich mit deinen Eltern und Großeltern, mit deinen Tanten und Onkels und sag ihnen, was auf dem Spiel steht. Besuche Oma und Opa am 22. September und nimm sie mit zum Wahllokal. An diesem Tag habt ihr die Wahl.
Like, that shit is not even subtle. You have that guy who looks like he's jumped out of like a Nazi propaganda poster with like the blonde hair. And you have that couple back in like the 1930s and 40s, and you have all those like scary like Muslim women. But again, it's what AI Slop can help create for them. They just show you the world they fear. I guess there is some sort of ideology underpinning that, and that is this return to tradition fascism that so many fascists love, that things were better before the Islamification of Europe, as they call it. And you see it there. It's all about what they fear. It isn't really about what they want to achieve. You do have elements of that, but it's mainly about what they fear. And this AI Slop allows them to achieve this because the situation isn't really happening. And that's another point with a lot of this AI fascist slop. Because the thing doesn't actually exist, and most of what they're talking about is based on myths and wild misinformation, AI Slop allows them to normalize people like visualizing what this would look like, because they don't need a film crew, they don't need actors, they don't need all this shit. They just type stuff into a prompt, and now you have a realistic looking video of your worst nightmare, and you can say to people, this is what will happen. I don't know if it's effective propaganda. As this gets better and better, you're going to flood the algorithms of this. You're going to flood Twitter and Facebook, and that's when it really will be effective. And fascists more than anyone need to deceive people, because a lot of fascists pretend they want to change things, but they represent the status quo just as much. Like Nigel Farage, the AFD, they're all backed by big money. They all come from big money. They just want a more centralized state where you don't have any room to oppose them in the pursuit of wealth extraction. And they can sometimes take the aesthetics of change, which fascists often do, or capitalize on moments where people want away from the status quo. And you even see that a tiny bit of Donald Trump, both election campaigns, but as you see when he's actually president, and there's propaganda, there isn't really anything motivating it. There isn't anything they're selling people when they get into power. It's just all about, oh, here's a massive tax break for billionaires. And in the American case as well, it is pretty blatant that all this government cares about is wealth extraction from the 99% to the 1%. But now let's talk about generally conservatives and fascists in regards to art, and why they don't give a shit about it. A lot of conservatives and fascists, they just want their worldview like fed to them. So you see this a lot with the anti-woke backlashes to various different things. They don't want to be challenged about their own politics. They don't want to be challenged about their own worldview. They just want something served to them that says, well, you're right and your ideology is good. That's actually all they want. And that's why you always find that most artists are people who are left-leaning, because they want to challenge the status quo. They want to make a commentary on society that might not be very tolerable by the status quo. And they want to make the world better because they believe in something. And they want to show you maybe how a different world can exist. They want to make a commentary on why this world is bad and maybe prompt you to think about changing it. Or they just want to make some commentary that might start a conversation about certain things, right? And anyone who's ever pursued anything artistic can probably relate to that. So I say this for last because I know people wouldn't care as much, but I'm writing this book at the moment, and it's essentially like a vehicle for my personal politics, but also like my commentary on certain things. So the main geopolitical like events that inspired this are Gaza in 2021, but just Gaza overall, but also like the rise of Irish revolutionaries and the failure of the Irish Revolution, as well, just like a general commentary on capitalism, imperialism. And it's a book set 100 years in the future. It is like very cyberpunky, but I'm writing that on multiple levels because I want to express myself. I want to like help people understand the world from certain perspectives you might not get using this fictional scenario to help them put themselves in the scenario easier. I want to just like explore what the future might look like and what will be bad about the future, and I want to talk about things like generational trauma. I want to talk about things about like settler colonialism, all those different things, and I want to write that to express myself on like multiple levels. I want to create an interesting story. I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about the world. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about all these things, and it's my expression. And if that book, you know, hopefully someone's going to read it someday, then we can have a conversation. It might challenge their own views about the world. It might, you know, you can have a nice debate about it, and that's what I would want it to be. And that's another cool thing about art. There's something universal about the human experience, that you can read something and then you can project what you think the artist is trying to say without them even saying it. Like I said in my Death Stranding video last week, I said Death Stranding is actually about climate change. But Hideo Kojima never said Death Stranding 1 was about climate change. But I was reading into it that it actually is about climate change because that is what I was thinking about when playing it. But he could say it's not about climate change. But also just like challenging your own beliefs and getting an insight into someone else's like worldviews or what they want for the future is a fun part about being human. Like I like the Dune books so much, and the whole series, all 6 books, is because it was written by a guy who was obsessed with like religion, was obsessed with like this massive scale of the future, and he was presenting in his work why the world should be libertarian, right? And why it shouldn't be communist, it shouldn't be the version of capitalism they had, it shouldn't have these big bureaucracies. Everyone should be like self-sufficient and libertarian, more like the Fremen, and that's pretty much the message of the books, right? I wouldn't agree with it, but then I find myself agreeing with certain parts of it, and I challenge myself with that book and through reading the author's politics because he did make good points about stuff. So then I have that in my head now. It's like, oh, yeah, he did make good points. Points I would never really consume on my side of the political spectrum or the books I usually read and stuff like that. So I'm happy I did that because I got an interesting perspective from a guy who's thought about things based on his own experience of living this more like self-reliant lifestyle, which I don't have. So that's what art is really for. And it's about expressing yourself and conveying a message. And I feel like with fascists, they're too lazy. They don't want to deviate from the status quo too much, and they basically just want to reinforce things for their benefit or reclaim some mythicized past that didn't really exist. So that's why you see a lot of fascist propaganda, or what fascists love, is these artistic paintings lionizing figures like, let's say, Philip II of Spain, or various like Christian victories against the Ottomans or Muslims. Like they absolutely eat that shit up. To them, it symbolizes something about like Christian glory. But there isn't really much room, I feel like, with fascism for any subtlety. So that's when you see fascist art, like actual attempts at art and drawing. Even then, it's never subtle. It's always beating you over the head with the message. I don't think fascists can ever be that good at art, apart from maybe drawing something that is interesting, like the futurist stuff, even if it is in service of like a terrible message. But again, they're going to resort to AI Slop for the multitude of reasons I said. Helps normalize something bad, helps enrich people who are their allies, and also helps them generate these scenarios that don't actually exist to scare people into voting for fascist politicians, like the AFD were doing right there. But there is a much better video to be made on this, to be honest. I'm just not enough in the world of art history, and I'm not an artist myself, so I can't comment on a lot of these things. But yeah, I hope someone makes a better video and maybe even might be inspired by this video to make that. And that is it for the video today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.